there's no question that there has been a historical mismatch between the organisations supporting people with disabilities and the carers movement. And a lot of that has been about the discourse of burden, and I completely understand that. There is no question for me that if I was to talk about my caring responsibility as a burden, that I would expect somebody else to react to that, because most carers will tell us that this is something they do because they want to, because we are mothers, we are fathers, we are sisters, we are brothers, we are sons and daughters, husbands and wives, friends and neighbours, who do what we do because it matters and because we are family and we are community. So the burden of the discourse around burden is old and tired and must go. It creates a friction that should not be there. It's a friction that is really a lie. So in Australia, we've worked remarkably well. We have what we call the National Disability and Carer Alliance. So 3 unlikely bedfellows, 3 who've generally not worked well together. That's Carers Australia, the Australian Federation of Disability Organisations and the National Disability Services. So the service sector that's been at war with people with disability, the people with disability who've not liked either of us, the carer movement who've sort of had problems both ways. So what we've found is that working in alliance, we have made extraordinary headway. We are working together to create what we believe is best for everybody. There is no question that now in Australia there is a significant growth in understanding that the unpaid support of all of our family carers is essential to the service system, and that many people with disabilities are beginning to understand that without those people behind them, who may or may not call themselves carers, their lives would be significantly altered. So together, those 3 bodies have worked with the government, and we now have the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which has commenced in Australia and is in the stages of rollout, which is an extraordinary shift. It is a scheme whose time has come, it had to happen. But it is a big movement, and it wouldn't have happened if the 3 of us weren't working together. What it required was for us to get over ourselves. You know, we had to actually look at what is the most important thing. So with us, working with people with disabilities, supporting with people with disabilities, understanding that people with disabilities issues are our issues, and that people with disabilities understanding that carer issues are our issues, and that if carer is burnt out, then their life, you know, is in some way affected by that.
I think it's very interesting to look at the issue of perhaps some of the historical tensions between the disability and the carer movements. But I think in Sweden now, more recently, as you know, there's a very strong disability movement. It led to the comprehensive services for personal assistance for people with severe disabilities in '94 in Sweden. And of course, the philosophy of independence and not wishing to be dependent on one's family members for intimate help and support, being able to have that formal care provider providing that help, of course, is very important. But I would say in more recent years that there has been some coming together, if you like, of the disability and carer movement, so that in the Swedish Family Care Competence Centre where I work, we have a major initiative that's been carried out under the initiative of the major disability organisation for people with profound severe disabilities, including intellectual difficulties. They have really campaigned for having direct support for parents and carers for children and adults with severe difficulties, and that is quite a major step forward. So they're very much supporting our work and recognising that parents increasingly have a very difficult role to play in terms of that coordinating function, in terms of really trying to have a life of their own whilst providing a lot of the care and support for their disabled relatives. So I think that it's realising that you're not diminishing the autonomy of the disabled person, but also you're seeing them as a unit, as it were, and trying to support both of them. And I think this initiative, this current initiative, is a very significant step forward, where we're able to work together with a major disability organisation to really provide knowledge and provide active support for carers, including parents of children and adults with severe disabilities.
There can certainly be a conflict between the disabled persons movement and carers, and some of that is I would see as a natural healthy conflict, because for example, if you take young people within a family who have a serious disability, as they get into their particularly their latter teenage years, they want their independence, and even though they have needs which you could classify as dependency needs, if you like. In other words, they need the assistance of someone to help them. Many of them want somebody independent of the intimate relationships of mother, father, brother and sister. And they also want the independence to be away from home, because they want to feel like other people who don't have that disability or illness, to move away from their parents and get their own home and their own 2 feet, stand on their own 2 feet, so to speak. So that is seems to be a normal and healthy thing that they should pursue, and that carers should respect and try and facilitate. There should be a healthy competition, as it were, between the carer's interest and the disability interest, but we have so much in common, fighting for where the carer has to be present in some form, because you'll find the person with the disability who gains their independence, it's often by also having assigned to them a personal assistant as a paid personal assistant. So they do need a personal assistant. They would use that terminology, and some people with disabilities don't like the terminology of carer. They feel it implies that they're over dependent or something like that. We don't mean it that way. We use the term carer to try and have a label on what the carer is doing and to fight for the carer's rights. But that should not be at the expense of the person with the disability. And we should be able to not only fight for both parties' rights, but we should be able to come together to see where our mutual interests are and be fighting for those together to have a much stronger lobby. Because I think, as has been found with wheelchair access in society, when we look back with the hindsight of wisdom, we can see that access to buildings has benefited practically everybody in society, and it looks rather farcical now looking back that we argued for, we need access to buildings for wheelchair users. In fact, we needed it for a whole plethora of people across society, but we just didn't recognise it at the time.